Sorry if this video makes you cry. Not because it aims to hurt, but because sometimes truth feels like a bruise you didn't know you were carrying. The title isn't clickbait. It's a warning, and maybe a promise. Because what you're about to hear isn't soft or sugar-coated. It's what most people avoid saying, but what your future self is quietly begging you to understand. Life is moving, whether you're ready or not. And every moment spent numbing yourself, avoiding the hard questions, or clinging to what's already gone, is a moment you never get back. This video exists for the version of you that wakes up feeling lost, for the nights when silence gets loud, for the days when you're not sure what you're living for anymore. What you're about to hear might sting, but it's also the same medicine that could save years of your life. So if something in your chest tightens while you listen, don't run from it. Lean in, let the words settle, and then come back. Listen again tomorrow and the day after that, because some truths need to be lived with, not just heard once. If this message speaks to you, share it with someone you care about. Your story, your pain, your healing might be exactly what someone else needs to see the light. Subscribe if you're ready for more moments like this, raw, real, and necessary. And let me know in the comments, what part of this truth are you finally ready to face? One, you're not just delaying a task. You're delaying your entire life. I once saw a photo of an elderly man blowing out the candles on his 80th birthday. Everyone around him was clapping, laughing, celebrating the moment, but his eyes were distant, like he was somewhere else. Perhaps in the memory of a dream he never chased, a promise he once made to himself and kept postponing. Maybe it was a book he always said he'd write, a trip he told his wife they'd take together, a guitar gathering dust in the corner, or a conversation he never had with someone he lost. That photo stayed with me not because of the birthday, but because of the silent weight behind his smile. It reminded me of the quiet tragedy most of us carry, the illusion that we still have time. We tell ourselves there's always later, always next month, always next year. But later is not a guarantee, it's a gamble. And with every delay, we're not just putting off a task, we're pausing our entire lives. Not many people wake up one morning and declare, I want to waste the next decade. But it doesn't happen with one big choice. It happens with hundreds of small ones, the ones where we say, not yet, maybe when I'm ready, or I'll start tomorrow. Yet time doesn't wait for readiness. It moves forward whether we act or not. Every sunrise, every blinking notification, every week we survive without reflecting, all of it becomes the background noise covering a deeper truth, that we're quietly drifting away from the life we were meant to live. And while drifting feels effortless, the price it demands is devastating, because no one ever regrets taking action as much as they regret staying still. We delay because we think we need more confidence, more clarity, more perfection. But the truth is, most of the people who built something meaningful started when they were uncertain, afraid, even unprepared. They didn't wait for courage. They moved while shaking. They made peace with doubt and chose motion anyway. Because there's something about acting despite fear that reshapes how we see ourselves. It's not the absence of fear that makes you brave. It's the willingness to step forward even when you're unsure. And here's the hard part. Every time you avoid starting, you're reinforcing a habit that tells your brain, I don't follow through. You teach yourself to trust fear over vision, to obey hesitation instead of purpose. And slowly you begin to doubt whether you're even capable of change. Not because you're not, but because you've practiced avoidance so many times it became a mindset. That's how regret is born. Not through sudden dramatic failure, but through the quiet erosion of time. Time we gave away willingly to comfort, to perfectionism, to overthinking. So ask yourself this, what's one thing you keep saying you'll start when you're ready? And now ask, what would it cost you to begin today, as messy, imperfect, and unprepared as you are? You may find that the cost of starting is far less than the cost of waiting. While we sit here debating our worthiness, life is happening. The seasons don't care about your doubts. The calendar won't pause for your fear. Life moves and it favors those who move with it. We weren't made to stay stuck. We were made to grow, to risk, to rise. And growth rarely feels like readiness. It often feels like discomfort. If you're waiting to stop being afraid, you'll be waiting forever. But if you can accept fear as part of the process, If you can take the first step without needing the next 10 to be clear, then you're already free. Free, not because everything is figured out, but because you no longer need it to be. So whatever it is you've been postponing, start, not tomorrow, not when you're braver, now. Listen to this message again if you need to. Let it soak into the places that have been paralyzed by procrastination. Share it with someone who's been waiting just like you. And every day, remind yourself, you're not promised more time, but you're always given a choice. Choose to begin, even when it scares you, especially when it scares you, because that's when you know it's real. 2. Are you living or just existing in a race with no finish line? There's a moment that hits you, not during crisis, not when things fall apart, but when everything appears fine on the outside. You've got the meetings, the notifications, the schedule, the endless scroll of obligations that fill your day and trick your mind into thinking you're moving forward, when really you're just moving fast, busy, distracted, but not toward anything that actually matters. It's in that quiet moment, maybe in your car after work or in bed with the lights off, when the noise fades and there's no one to perform for, that you suddenly realize you can't remember a single thing from today that made you feel alive. You existed, you functioned, but you didn't live. That's the part no one warns you about, that you can do everything right and still feel hollow, because life isn't about checking boxes, it's about feeling present in the moment you're in. But how often do we slow down long enough to notice where we even are? We've confused exhaustion with achievement. We've replaced joy with productivity and wonder with obligation. Somewhere along the line, the finish line disappeared, and we just kept running anyway because everyone else is running too, and stopping feels like failure. But failure isn't pausing. Failure is never asking, why am I running in the first place? We buy into the myth that more is always better. More work, more status, more income. But none of it adds up if we've lost the ability to hear ourselves think, to sit with ourselves in stillness, to wake up excited for the day, rather than bracing ourselves to survive it. There are people with six-figure salaries who cry in the shower. There are folks with corner offices who haven't smiled with their eyes in years. Success, as we define it, has become a shell, a hollow form wrapped around burnout, anxiety, and disconnection. And we praise it, even while it robs us of presence. The truth is, you were not built for autopilot. You weren't meant to go years without hearing your own heartbeat over the sound of deadlines. And if you've been living like that, if you've traded your being for endless doing, it's not too late to reverse it. But it starts by recognizing the trap, that most of the things you're chasing were handed to you, not chosen by you. That you've said yes to things that drain you, simply because you were afraid to say no. That you've built a life that looks full on paper, but feels empty in your chest. And if that realization stings, let it. Let it wake you up, not to shame you, but to bring you back to yourself. Because living with intention isn't about quitting your job or moving to the mountains. It's about being awake enough to know when something isn't working and brave enough to change it before another year slips by. When was the last time you felt your soul in something you did? When was the last time you lost track of time doing something that made you forget to check your phone? When was the last time you stopped and said, this right here is what I want more of? If you can't answer those questions, you're not alone. Most people can't. But the difference between those who reclaim their life and those who stay stuck isn't luck. It's awareness, followed by action. So take one breath today and use it to pause, not just physically, but mentally. Ask yourself not what needs to be done, but what needs to be felt. Ask not what you can achieve, but what you've been too afraid to admit you've been missing. You don't have to keep running. You're allowed to step off the treadmill. You're allowed to design a life that brings you peace instead of pressure. And you're allowed to start now. This isn't a warning, it's an invitation. One you may need to hear again and again until it sinks beneath the noise. So play this back when the fog returns, and remind yourself, you weren't born to merely exist. You were born to live with presence, with clarity, with intention. 3, it's not the past that hurts you. It's your decision to stay there. There are days when it happens without warning. A certain scent in the air, a song you haven't heard in years, or a place that once held meaning, and suddenly your chest tightens, your breath catches, and you're no longer in the present. You've been pulled back, almost involuntarily, into a memory you thought you buried. Maybe it's the breakup you never recovered from, or the friend you lost too soon, or the mistake you swore you'd never forgive yourself for. And in that instant, everything around you disappears, and you're staring into a version of your life that no longer exists, but still somehow owns a piece of you. What most people don't realize is that the past doesn't haunt us. We keep summoning it, feeding it, giving it power every time we let it dictate our mood, our choices, our identity. We say we're trapped by what happened, but more often, we're trapped by what we've refused to release. There's a difference between remembering and reliving, and many of us live in reruns of a pain that no longer serves us. Memory becomes a loop, looping not because it wants to, but because we never hit stop. We confuse holding on with honoring, and we mistake sorrow for loyalty, as if carrying sadness is proof that it mattered. But pain isn't proof of love. Presence is. Growth is. Peace is. And none of those can enter your life if the door is still being held open for ghosts. You are not broken because something hurt you. You're stuck because you haven't allowed yourself to step out of the moment where it hurt. The wound isn't bleeding anymore, but you keep scratching it open, maybe out of habit. Maybe because it's the only thing that still feels familiar. But familiarity doesn't mean truth. Just because it happened doesn't mean it has to follow you. You can still remember someone and not let the absence of them consume your joy. You can still acknowledge the past without letting it define the future. It's not about forgetting. It's about finally choosing not to let a past version of yourself decide who you're allowed to be now. Think of it like this. If you're driving and you keep looking at the rearview mirror, eventually you'll crash. Not because the mirror was wrong to exist, but because you forgot the direction you're supposed to be facing. Life, in all its complexity, asks you to look forward. Not because what's behind you didn't matter, but because what's ahead is the only thing you can shape. The Stoics taught that we only ever truly own the present moment, not yesterday, not tomorrow, just now. And yet we give our power away to days that are already gone, stories that are already written, and people who may no longer be watching. That's how regret grows, not from what happened, but from what we allowed to keep happening long after the moment passed. So, what would happen if today, just for a moment, you stopped dragging yesterday into the room with you? What would happen if you let go of the weight you were never meant to carry this long? You might discover that peace was never out of reach. You just didn't have space to hold it. Healing begins not when we forget what hurt us, but when we stop needing the hurt to mean something more than it already did. Maybe it taught you, maybe it broke you, maybe it changed you. But it doesn't own you anymore unless you let it. So take a breath, let the memory come, and then let it go. Not because it didn't shape you, but because it no longer deserves to lead you. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to do next. And you deserve to move forward with clarity, with dignity, with freedom. If you need to hear this again tomorrow, come back. Let it be your daily reset. Let it be the moment you remind yourself that you have power, not over what was, but over what comes next. For you don't fear change, you fear letting go of what's familiar. It's strange how we crave transformation. How we whisper to ourselves late at night that we're ready for something new, that we want out of the old cycle, that we're done settling for a life that doesn't feel like ours. And yet, when change finally stands in front of us, real and demanding, we freeze. Not because we don't want the change, but because letting go of what's familiar feels like ripping a piece of ourselves away. It's not the uncertainty that shakes us. It's the quiet terror of releasing something that once felt safe, even if that very thing is the reason we feel stuck. Some people spend years in a job that drains the life out of them, not because they believe in the work, but because they know the rhythm. It's predictable. Others stay in relationships that have long lost their connection, not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of not knowing who they are outside of that dynamic. We wrap ourselves in routine like armor, forgetting that what protects us can also trap us. Familiarity is seductive. Even pain, when predictable, can become comfortable. But there's a cost to comfort, a hidden tax we pay with our potential. We silence our inner voice, delay our personal transformation, and begin to confuse numbness with peace. Yet the truth is, the longer you stay in what no longer fits, the further you drift from who you're meant to become. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius wrote that everything in life follows a pattern, that just as spring follows winter, loss and gain, departure and arrival, endings and beginnings are part of the natural flow. Still, we treat every transition like an emergency. We resist the falling apart, even when we know it's the only path to something stronger. But resistance doesn't stop the tide. All it does is exhaust you. At some point, you have to ask yourself, is the discomfort of staying where you are really easier than the uncertainty of where you could go? Because the truth is, change is already happening whether you accept it or not. Your body ages, your relationships shift, the world evolves, and you can either meet that change with openness or be dragged by it, screaming through every step. People often think surrender means giving up, but it doesn't. Surrender is not weakness. It's alignment with truth. It's realizing that what once served you might now be the thing that's quietly holding you back. It's choosing to loosen your grip, not because what you had was meaningless, but because it no longer reflects who you've become. Letting go doesn't mean erasing the past. It means making peace with it, learning from it, honoring it, and then setting it down so your hands are free to carry something new. If you're afraid to change, that's normal. Everyone is. But don't mistake fear for failure. Don't wait for the fear to vanish before you move, because fear doesn't vanish, it transforms. The more you walk into it, the more it becomes fuel. The only way to grow is to leave the old version of you behind, the version who tolerated too much, waited too long, stayed too quiet. That version kept you alive. This version will make you feel alive. And yes, change will demand something from you, a sacrifice of comfort, a burial of certainty, a willingness to rebuild. But what it gives back is far more valuable. Clarity, resilience, and the realization that you're capable of more than you imagined. If that scares you, come back to this truth again and again. You're not afraid of what's ahead. You're afraid of leaving behind what's already over. And if you can let that go, even with trembling hands, life will begin to open in ways you never expected. Not because everything becomes easier, but because you finally stop standing in your own way. Change doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for movement. So move, gently, slowly, courageously, but move. Let the old fall away, not because it was worthless, but because you are no longer willing to live a life that feels smaller than you know you were born for. 5. It's not life that hurts, it's the expectations you cling to. What if the pain you're feeling right now isn't coming from what happened to you, but from how tightly you've been holding on to how it was supposed to go? We think life breaks us because it's unfair, because the job didn't last, because someone walked away, because we gave everything and still didn't get the reward. But maybe it's not life that hurts. Maybe it's the narrative you wrote without asking whether life agreed to play along. You created a version of the story where effort leads to success, where loyalty guarantees love, where doing everything right shields you from loss, and when reality doesn't match the fantasy, it feels like betrayal. But reality never promised comfort. It only promised the truth. And truth doesn't care how attached you are to the script you had in mind. It unfolds the way it needs to, often messy, often unpredictable, always indifferent to our plans. That's why we suffer. Not because things fell apart, but because we never imagined they could. We assumed life owed us a straight path, and when it curved, we blamed life instead of acknowledging that we were holding on too tightly to something that was never under our control to begin with. Imagine standing on the shore trying to stop the tide with your bare hands. That's what expectation feels like. A battle against the inevitable, a refusal to accept the rhythm of life because we're too busy shouting at it to follow our rhythm instead. But the ocean doesn't respond to shouting, and neither does life. The more you try to control every outcome, the more exhausted you become. And eventually, you start to confuse exhaustion with meaning, as if the more it hurts, the more it must matter. But pain isn't always proof of depth. Sometimes, it's just the result of refusing to let go. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop trying to force things into shapes they were never meant to fit. It means you stop demanding applause for sacrifices no one asked you to make. It means you start living with clarity, not for perfection, not for guarantees, but for truth. Peace doesn't come when everything goes right. It comes when you stop expecting it to. It comes when you learn to meet life as it is, not as it was supposed to be. That shift, from control to clarity, is the moment you begin to reclaim your power. Not the kind of power that bends reality, but the kind that gives you freedom regardless of reality. That's what the Stoics understood. Freedom isn't about rearranging the world to match your preference. It's about detaching from the need for the world to do so. Because the more you try to bend life into a shape it was never designed to hold, the more you break yourself in the process. So maybe the question isn't why did this happen? Maybe it's what am I still expecting that's making this hurt more than it needs to? When you cling to expectations, you lose the ability to respond to life as it is. You become a prisoner of imaginary outcomes, always comparing, always disappointed, never present. But when you let go, when you drop the script, when you stop trying to hold the tide, you return to the only moment that belongs to you, now. And from this moment, you can begin again, not as a victim of unmet dreams, but as someone finally free to live without needing life to explain itself first. This kind of mindset isn't easy. It takes practice, discipline, and emotional honesty. But once you learn to trade your expectations for awareness, once you stop demanding certainty and start choosing alignment, you'll begin to realize that most of your suffering was never caused by life. It was caused by your resistance to it. And resistance, like expectation, is optional. So breathe. Let the old plans fall away. Let the need for guarantees dissolve. You don't need a perfect outcome. You need presence, clarity, and the courage to live without needing everything to make sense first. And if you forget that tomorrow, come back here. Come back to this truth. Let it settle in again. Let it remind you that peace doesn't wait for your plan. It waits for your release. 6. You don't fear silence. You fear facing who you are without distractions. There's a kind of silence we all instinctively avoid. Not the silence in a quiet room or an empty street, but the silence inside. The kind that arrives when the music fades, the notifications stop, and for once the world stops demanding your attention. It's the silence that creeps in when there's nothing left to scroll through, no one left to respond to, no task urgent enough to distract you from the one presence you've been avoiding all along, yourself. And in that moment, the noise of the world is replaced by something much louder, the questions you've buried beneath busyness. Why am I still unfulfilled? Who am I outside of what I do? When did I last feel genuinely proud of the way I live? Those questions don't arise in chaos. They rise in stillness. And that's why so many of us fill every waking hour with stimulation. Podcasts playing in the background while we cook, videos looping as we fall asleep, calendars packed with meetings we don't need. Not because we're truly interested in everything we consume, but because distraction is safer than confrontation. If we keep the volume up high enough, we don't have to face the emotional truths that surface in quiet. But silence doesn't destroy you, it exposes you. It strips away the masks you wear in public, the roles you perform out of habit, the constant pretending that everything is fine. And once the noise fades, all that remains is your truth. Raw, unfiltered, waiting for acknowledgement. That's why stillness feels heavy. It's not empty, it's full of everything you've suppressed. But here's the paradox. The very thing we avoid is the thing we need most. Because until you can sit with your own mind without needing a screen, a sound, or someone else to validate your worth, you'll always feel like something is missing. And no achievement, no attention, no external success will ever fill that gap. What you're missing isn't more, it's clarity. And clarity only comes in silence. So instead of fearing the quiet, what if you treated it like a doorway? Not a punishment, but an invitation. You don't need to meditate like a monk or isolate yourself in the mountains. You just need to stop running from your own presence. Start with 10 minutes. Sit in stillness, breathe, and notice what comes up. Not to judge it, but to recognize it. That discomfort you feel isn't weakness. It's evidence that something inside you wants to be seen, heard, and understood. You've spent years building a life around productivity and appearances. But how much of that life was designed around avoiding yourself? The truth is, you will never find peace if your entire existence is built on fleeing your inner world. There's a reason the Stoics valued solitude, not because they feared society, but because they understood that the greatest battles are fought within, and the strongest foundation isn't built through constant motion, but through unshakable presence. If you can learn to be still, to be honest with yourself without noise to hide behind, you begin to build something that no one can take from you: inner stability. It's not about becoming emotionless, it's about becoming unshakable. That begins not in success, but in silence. So the next time you feel that itch to fill the space, to turn something on, to keep moving, pause. Let the stillness speak, not because it will feel good at first, but because it will show you who you are beneath the layers. And that version of you, the one underneath the noise, is the one you've been searching for all along. Return to this practice daily, not as a chore, but as a homecoming. Let silence become your teacher, your mirror, your medicine, because once you stop fearing it, you'll realize it holds everything you've been too busy to hear. And when that happens, you won't need to chase clarity anymore. You'll have found it, not in the noise, but in yourself. The truths in this video aren't meant to shame you. They're meant to wake you up, because deep down, you already know you've been delaying what matters, chasing what doesn't, and carrying burdens that no longer belong to you. But today, something changed. You paused, you listened, and that's where transformation begins. If even one part of this message hits you, don't rush past it. Let it sink in. Replay it if you need to. Make it a part of your daily reset. Because clarity doesn't come from noise. It comes from slowing down and finally choosing to see yourself without filters. Let this be your call to stop living in autopilot mode and start living with intention. You don't need perfection to begin. You need honesty, awareness, and the courage to act, even when it's uncomfortable. These aren't just Stoic life lessons. They're invitations to build mental strength, reclaim your inner peace, and stop wasting your life on distractions. If you've faced moments like these, share your story in the comments. Your experience might help someone else. And if this resonated with you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. There's more truth waiting, and you deserve to hear it.